Hello everyone, it's Lennon and welcome back to the channel, and it's a Thoth Thursday. We're doing something completely different today. We are getting visited by Hanni from Fierce and Pretty. Welcome, Hanni. Now,
Thanks. Hi, guys.
a couple of weeks ago, I went on Instagram and I was like, I'm thinking maybe some of you guys would have a Thoth question. And Hanni was the only one that responded. So thank you, Hanni, for responding. Her question revolved around one card being the Six of Swords, which is science, keyword science. So I contacted her and I said, why don't we just get on and chat for a little while about this one card? So that's what we're doing today. So welcome, sit back and relax, and hopefully we can alleviate some of your confusion with the card, Hanni.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that, because, I'm the #1 fan of Thoth Thursdays. They're just the best, like awesome. And, me being a Finn and struggling with the language, English language, most of the time, to some degree. And when it comes to reading Aleister Crowley's thoughts, and they must be confusing to a native English speaker. But then when you are Finn and you're trying to, first of all, understand the language, and then the beautiful madness and weirdness called Aleister Crowley, things get kind of confusing. And the science card has always been in my Thoth studies one card that has confused me the most. And I'm not blaming Aleister Crowley. I'm not blaming Lady Frida Harris. I'm actually kind of putting the blame on Pixie's card, because I've done a lot of work comparing the Thoth system and the Rider-Waite-Smith. I've done all types of studies on my own for that. But then there are these few cards when you kind of compare it to the Golden Dawn system, the book T or whatever, and then just some things don't resonate. And I understand that when Pixie was creating these images, she had to focus on one possible meaning or one possible scenario over the card, because you can't do as much as you can with the Thoth style. So I kind of see that, but that's why I wanted to pick your brains about this card, because it has been one of the most puzzling ones so far for me.
Now, I agree that, first and foremost, I agree with you on the confusion between the Thoth and the Rider-Waite-Smith, because it's like, how does a boat and traveling through down water mix with science? And after some careful research into not only the Book of Thoth, but I've used a couple of other books to try to get like why Pixie would have used that specific image. And I do have like a tentative answer. So do you want that answer right now?
Yeah, we can start from there, because we can first, chew this piece of cake and then move forward with with Lady Frida Harris's depiction.
Right. So yeah, before we dive into the Thoth version. Now, I was listening to The Fortune's Wheelhouse, which is T. Susan Chang, and I think her name's Mel. I know, right?
Yeah.
I was listening. Yeah. Yeah. She's the creator of the Tabula Mundi, right?
Yes, which I actually have right
here. Isn't that crazy?
The Tabula Mundi, and then the Rosetta, and she's like a genius, and massive genius, and for Thoth. But here's also the Rosetta.
And I actually, in listening to the podcast, I found some things out in terms of astrology that could lead to this. So in listening to them talk and about this card's astrology, it's a Mercury card. Okay, so This is Mercury in Aquarius. Okay.
Yes.
And Mercury is a right.
Which way?
the other way.
Mercury, the other way. Yes.
Yeah, Mercury in Aquarius. Now, in terms of Mercury, he's a messenger, right? So he
Yeah.
sends messages. And so this boat could be sending a message through water because of Aquarius. I was like, huh, okay. Now the
Yeah.
swords are in the boat because it's sword suit, you know? And
Yeah.
people often they get confused because in a lot of the Rider-Waite cards, there's other elements besides like this is an air suit, but why is there water? It's like because this is Aquarius, you know? And with that being like an air suit as well, it's just kind of mixing it all, you know, like
Yeah.
because she's the water bearer, I guess. But I thought they were contemplating the fact that this boat could be sending messages via Mercury. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool.
And when you're talking about those two ladies and T. Susan Chang, I just have to refer to this book, her
Yes.
newest book, The 33 Secrets. And I loved having this book where she talks through the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery through these cards, because even though I use this in Thoth studies, I use it for that, but it kind of, I love the way that both of them try always their best to mush in the gap, try to make the gap, smaller between the Thoth and the Rider-Waite-Smith. They, they are not rooting for the Thoth, but they are trying to,
Right. Like there
narrow
seems to
the gap.
be, yeah, there seems to, inside the gap like you're talking about, there seems to be some void. Like
Yeah.
they seem to be two different meanings versus the Rider and the Thoth or even other systems. But I like how they do that.
Yeah.
Just put something in the void, shove something in there.
Yeah.
Now, one more thing I want to say about the boat is I did read up on some Egyptian myth, and myth says that Ra sails up the legs of Nuit, so that star goddess thing, in the Atet boat until noon, and then enters Sektet's boat and continues in his boat until sunset. So that's an Egyptian myth. And I thought, so maybe Pamela Coleman Smith would have gone the Egyptian way as well, only because of in terms of like Golden Dawn and how they believe in Egyptian deities and things like that. And we know that Crowley had an Egyptian emphasis in his deck. So there
Yeah.
could be a link there. I don't know. The boat and day and night and things like that. So I did find that out, which was interesting. That was an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah. And also because when I created these really geeky tables of its suit between Thoth and Rider-Waite-Smith,
Mm-hmm.
and I did comparisons. What things are different? What are similar? And I took the meanings from as much as I could from the Book of Thoth, but sometimes it doesn't give you much. So on top of that, I used so both of them I found the keyword of journey by water in both. So Arthur Edward Waite's and also in the most traditional Thoth meanings. So it could be found in both of them, even though journey by water isn't shown here, but it can be found as the keywords.
Now, according to Crowley, I guess you could say, the book doesn't say much in terms like in the Book of Thoth, like because we know he can be vague as hell, but it says it's consciousness in its most harmonized and balanced form. Because Mercury, if you think of Mercury, he's very there's some balance there. Balanced form, so saith the Master Theron, is what I wrote down. So I think that with this being a sword suit, there's a mental aspect of it. And then with it being Mercury in Aquarius, we have to kind of add those in to the sword suit. So Mercury, Aquarius, swords, what do you spit out? And I think that what he got with that was mixing them all up is balance, harmonious, and balanced form in your mind. So I thought that that was pretty cool, because when I think of intelligence, I don't necessarily think of balance being the key, like harmony being the key, but it must be something as like organization, like in the tabla, I think it's the tabla mundi. She's got this like sextant, like this,
Yeah,
I guess
I
this
can try to
instrument.
find it while you speak. Yeah.
It's like this depiction of a sextant that is an instrument, like a mathematical instrument that does the stars. It pretty much maps things. And I thought that in terms of the like all that we know about the Six of Swords, when you think of the instrument and you think of the solar system and you think of the universe and the stars, like the stars themselves and Mercury and intelligence and all of that rolled into one, it's like the sextant is the science part of the universe and how in which we can map it out. We can map out the stars. And another thing that I learned from Fortune's Wheelhouse is that when you think about space travel or any kind of travel out in the universe that we know of, like, you know, stuff like that, they say spaceships. Why do they say ships? Because it's not in water. And I thought, oh, okay. So I think that the sextant is a good tool that she kind of grabbed onto in terms of the map. Like the science behind the universe is because we can map out the movement of the stars and things like that. So that's kind of how I got science with it, is by looking at that image from the Tabula Mundi.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to look and see. I've got some more information of Mercury. And it says, because its ruler, this card's ruler, is Mercury, it's the intelligence that has or is winning the argument from the five. So if we think about the fives of swords, that's what is that? Defeat? Isn't it defeat?
Yeah.
I think that that could mean there's an argument happening in the five. Somebody's fighting about something. And the six is more so mapping out, much like the sextant, mapping out the argument, getting your facts straight. And that's where the balance that Crowley's talking about is. If you balanced out your thoughts, then you could potentially win the argument if you were a little bit more organized. So all of that is pretty cool to think about.
And on that thought, I have to, because I was doing my research from this book,
Mm-hmm.
and what I loved what she said, T. Susan Chang there, because when we think about the defeat card, so the Five of Swords, but what do we get if we add one more sword? So it's kind of like we lost everything. Nobody kind of won anything. The Five of Swords, it could be a situation that kind of like, if you think about the Rider-Waite-Smith image, kind of nobody is happy. And how do you move on from this? And then you add one more sword, the the Ace of Swords. You kind of like, you use your mind, you use your ideas, your intellect to find your way out of this, not so happy situation. And then you transfer into the Six of Swords, but also what she said on the book, because of course talking about astrology in that book, because it's a book about the deacons. But I love that it never loses its guiding star. Kind of like the traveler there, he has its guiding star to keep focus, and then sextant, what you were talking about in the Day, and then the intellectual Mercury kind of there, if we think about in the Rider-Waite-Smith. But I love the guiding star coming from this star card from Aquarius into that equation, and I really enjoyed that adding on that one more sword, that kind of that, however you see the Ace of Swords, and how that could transform the situation from the Five of Swords
Right.
onwards to the six.
And because we don't get a lot of depiction in the Thoth, but when you do think of the Five of Swords in the writer deck. I didn't pull it out, but there seems to be
I can dig it while you're speaking.
There seems to be like an actual fight happening, right?
Yeah.
And when you think of, okay, say you're in that situation and you're in a room or out in nature, wherever, with other individuals or possibly other mindsets or something like that. You're in this, I don't know, this room, and everyone's talking on top of each other, everyone's fighting, and everyone's ideas are getting shoved into the center of this room. Kind of like we see in this, everything's getting shoved to the middle. But so if you're in this situation, right, where, see, this doesn't actually look like a fight. It looks like defeat, more so than a fight. But when you're thinking about the argument and he seems to be walking away, right? He seems to be walking away from the problem now, like he's been defeated, or else he was the one that did the defeating. Either way, when you're in this fight and you get defeated or do the defeating, the next step is to like recompartmentalize all your thoughts and ideas, right? So I feel like there was a fight, there was an argument or something, and then fight hasn't been won yet until the 6th. And it's not until all your thoughts are in a row, you're like, okay, well, I need to reassess here. And I think that the term science is on the micro and the macrocosm. So in Pixie's depiction, it's more of a micro depiction. And then Crowley wants us to understand that there's a universal defeat and a remapping, things that have to be redone. And then there's the same thing can happen in real life, like in terms of like humans. So I do think that in terms of Pixie, I think that she wanted us to be able to relate to like when we see an image, she wanted us to be able to relate to it as humans. And Crowley wanted us to think more bigger than that. And so I think that that's the main difference in both the decks, is that he made it seem so abstract so that we would understand that it's not just, what we're seeing on the Pixie's card, but it's also macrocosm as well. It's happening in the universe. Stars are colliding, and there can be fights up there with dwarves and supernovas and things like that. And it's about realigning everything too, so that the map still is able to help everything up there. So I guess that's where I was going with that.
Yeah. Have you ever paid attention to the rose cross thingy in the 6 of Swords?
Yes.
In the science card, yeah. And how the rose has been not treated so well in the 5 of Swords. Yeah, but I was just coming to the fact that it's interesting that the rose is once again whole in the rose cross in the 6. If we think about how the rose has been treated in the earlier cards, like in the 5, you see the petals scattered all over there. Yeah.
And is it, in your opinion, is it that the rose is getting put back together, or is it more so that it was blown up and the swords are what's putting it back together? Or like, do you have an idea?
Yeah, I don't know, but you always have to, when you look at Lady Frida Harris's art, you have to look symmetrical things are and how asymmetrical they are, and you easily know if it's a good card or a bad card, kind of, the first gist out of it. But here, when all the items are like in a neatly organized, very structured place, you know that there's the harmony.
I'm glad that so I like how you talk about the symmetry, because I think that this middle portion here, get my face out of the way so it'll focus, is this. And when I think of the middle and I think of the swords putting back together the rosy cross and almost reconstructing it, it does say the points touch the rosy cross, indicating the central secret of scientific truth. Now, what the hell is scientific truth? I mean, when you're thinking about defeat and you think this is a sword suit, you're thinking, okay, defeat of the mind, maybe defeat in some kind of mental headspace. Then when you reconstruct it, you're using scientific truth. So I think that this could also be a way for us to bounce back, like get rid of the woo-woo. I hate to use that term, but it's almost like let's add some science to this and get a real world answer or a real universal answer and use the facts. Let's use some facts, and that's how we're going to come out of defeat and reconstruct the Rosy Cross. So when it said that, I thought they're formed in a very specific way, as we see. And we see that this diamond shape, it's actually, well, it says it's a hexagram. And I thought, okay, that might mean something in terms of sacred geometry. But I do like that there seems to be all this chaos in the background. And I think that the chaos is coming from the 5. And when the swords are coming into this rose, I think that the rose and the cross, the rosy cross symbol, is a symbol of truth. Not so much scientific truth, but when you add it with a sword suit, it becomes scientific truth. Does that mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that the hexagram comes not so much from the four-sided angle there, but if you would,
right,
track
right,
each of the hilts of the swords,
right.
so it's there. But it was fun to see that card because the square, it showed so well when you were showing the card, and then I was looking at my card, and I first didn't even see it. I first saw the round part around the cross, and I had to look for a while before I saw the square, because when you were showing the card, I could so easily see the square there. And that's why I love looking at the tarot cards sometimes through the lens of computer, because I sometimes see things when I look them a bit more further away than when I look at them here.
Right.
You see them in a different way.
No, I'm gonna try to do it. Like it's like when I scry with I've been known to scry with this. And this is kind of how I do it, like kind of what you're talking about. You just lay them on the table and you just zone right into them. You just like not focused, just it's all fuzzy. And I wonder, because he talks about the hexagram, like you were saying, the points of the hilts of the swords. What then is the purpose of having a square and a circle inside this? Like, it's like the four is like when you think of the fours, like the structure of that. So it's like, okay, we're structured. And then the circle is like an infinity kind of a thing, right?
It is.
I'm not really sure where, like, I guess in terms of like projective geometry, what Lady Frida Harris used, it looks cool, but it doesn't actually say in any of my texts why they've used those two shapes, if only to just kind of map out the hexagram.
Yeah, I've never actually focused on those images, and that's the beauty of Lady Frida Harris's art, is that you might think that you know them,
Right.
but when you look at them through different eyes and different lenses, you start seeing different things. And it changes because whichever deck you use, because now here we have a greenie. I don't know if it shows well with my lighting, but then you see the coloring in this finished version, and everything looks really different, even like in a bad lighting on a screen. And when I look at them, I see totally different colors and totally different shapes in a way, depending on which printing edition of a deck I do have
Yeah.
with me.
And surprisingly, I don't have an ancient copy of Thoth. I have my 1986 A.G. Mueller, and then that's my trimmed because I'm an idiot. And then I just have like a regular green box from US Games, and that's like this one. And both of
Yeah.
them have pretty much the same coloration. So
Yeah.
I don't like that I can't map out the colors. So I always do it vicariously through you.
Yeah,
Have all of them.
I think, if I'm not lying, do I have 16 different Thoth decks or something like that? I'm gonna kind of going cuckoo with this.
Yeah. Now, in terms of research, okay, I know that before we started, we talked a little bit about the books we use. Now, of course, no one's surprised that I used the Book of Thoth and Understanding the Thoth Tarot by Lon Milo Duquette. I used both of those in terms of research, and I used Gerd Ziegler. And I'm wondering, before I jump in with my resources, which books did you use? Did you use any books? Because I know some of them are different than the ones I used.
Yes, because of course we are geeks and we use books, and because I knew that okay, Lennon definitely has the beautiful old copy of the Book of Thoth, so I knew that you're gonna use it, and then I kind of knew that you have the Lon Milo Duquette's book, so that's why I tried to collect other books. Just, just I had a hinge. So I was using T. Susan Chang's new book, 36 Secrets, even though it is a Rider-Waite-Smith book, but for me, it is the most perfect, Thoth book on covering the astrology, the Mercury in Aquarius parts. This just answers that question that I had when I first started to dabble with the Thoth deck. And I was like, okay, what is that? That's Mercury. Okay, good. And then, okay, this is Aquarius. But what the fuck does it mean to have Mercury in Aquarius? It's like, what is that? And I had zero clue, zero clue. And then I started to study, but then when you have to study astrology, it takes a freaking long time.
Yeah.
And even this, it doesn't give you all the answer. It's not the clearest, and it's not like simple, but it does help a lot. And learning tarot is not supposed to be so easy, I guess. But then the other books that I had is the Book of Seshet by Emma
Hmm.
Meline. So this is the guidebook that you can buy with the Rosetta Tarot. So I have way too many decks here. I'm trying to organize, but this is the Rosetta, if
Mm.
somebody isn't familiar. And it's actually a really similar deck than Thoth is. It's the most, I don't know, help me with my English, but it's most Thoth-like Thoth
Yeah.
deck that there is, because the Tabula Mundi is its own beautiful, gorgeous animal, but the Rosetta is much more like
So
just a
it's,
new way of drawing the Thoth cards.
yeah, because I know that in terms of clones, that the Rosetta is much more
Yeah,
like Thoth based. And I
yeah,
know that she did, like, the Thoth is her influence for the Tableau Mundi, but she basically kind of went her own, like when
yes,
she thinks of the Thoth cards and the Thoth meanings, she kind of put her own spin on it in terms of what she painted, or what she, had painted and drawn. So I know that for both decks, though, I know that the Thoth was the influence instead of it being a Rider-Waite clone, right?
yeah, yeah. And the third book that I was using is the book M, which is the book for the Tabula Mundi. So Libra Mundi, book M by also Emma Meline, and this is just amazing book. I think she has evolved a lot between the Rosetta and the Tabula Mundi, and as James Feeney often says that this is a great, and I couldn't agree more, because as you said about the podcast, Fortune's Wheel, how it is, they're just mad geniuses.
Right. And I like how they're podcast is like they devote, kind of like what we were doing today, they kind of devote the time for one card. Like I was able to listen to a whole hour long episode on this card alone, which did help. And it kind of, because
Yeah.
I knew what I knew about the card, and like when it comes up in a reading for myself, like what I'll dub the meaning, the divinatory meaning. But it was nice to dive and just listen for an hour and kind of like just ingratiate myself with just this one card. So in terms of the astrology, because I don't know shit about astrology really. I mean, I know my three main sun, moon, and rising. I know kind of what the like stars are doing in the sky like today or whatever, because I get notified. But in terms of astrology and this being Mercury in Aquarius, what did that 36 Secrets book share with you? Were you able to get any like information on, because I know you said that confused you about Mercury in Aquarius. Did it go into like what Mercury could mean or what Aquarius could mean, and then when you add them together or anything like that, did it
Yeah.
give you any info?
Yeah. It was actually, it was quite many pages. It was actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages on this card alone. But what I loved was how she talked about the guiding star aspect of the Aquarius. That was something that I kind of really enjoyed. Like kind of when there is this transition, and of course he's talking about the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery there, but talking about the guy who's driving the boat, and that the boat is kind of like a shell stick,
Mm.
and she kind of talks like Mercury is the one driving the boat with that stick. So it's not the deepest water; they are shallow waters. But I really love that, and I wrote some notes here. She was talking about the connections also, as you were talking about, between air and water. And but now we're jumping a bit to the more Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. But if we think about Pixie's art, that there is kind of a lot of water in the suit of swords. It's kind of, if we look at the Five of Swords, there's water behind there,
And it
and
seems like
and
that
then
water's moving. In the
yeah,
five, it looks like it's kind of moving, like it's windy or
and
something.
here again we do have water, so we do have a lot of water there. And then she was talking about all these creation myths, that when kind of like water and air, like sky and water, were united. And then it got me thinking, because I've been reading this awesome book called Fingerprints of Gods. I don't remember the author on top of my head, but there are these myths around Egypt, most myths and so on. But he was talking about all these different myths that different cultures had about these great floods that kind of served knowledge from ancient generations before us, before written knowledge, that kind of like water and air being one. So that was kind of interesting. And then I loved one thing I loved, because she was talking about Pixie's card. Do you still have the Pixie's Six of Swords there?
You
If
want
you
me to
can
show it?
show it. Yeah. No, it was actually talking about, no, you don't have that card. It was the star card from the Rider-Waite-Smith. Now I'm fooling you,
Oh.
but there is. Sorry, guys, it's a rambling discussion. But she was talking about the bird in the star card. I try if I can find it. But there is a bird behind in a tree in the Rider-Waite-Smith
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
star card. There is the bird, and she was kind of, yes, here I have it, and I tried to put the bird part as close as I can. There you see maybe the tree and the bird.
Yes.
on the behind.
Mm-hmm.
And the bird kind of has a long beak. And she was taking the idea as far as the ibis bird
Oh.
and Thoth there. So these are the brilliant ways how she kind of gap. But also because when we talk about this card, I'm having chaos over here with my cards. But when we talk about Mercury, we are also talking about Hermes. And then we are also the
Okay, so you were leading. I heard everything you just said. So before we like cut that little bit out, I heard everything you said, and that leads us into the card being a 6 in Tiferet. So
yeah,
we can go
yeah,
with that.
and also T. Susan Jang goes through also the Kabbalah in this book and how this card is in the sixth Sephiroth of Tiferet and those points. So I think it binds things up nicely together. And I especially loved, it's hard to see here, but all the roots that you can reach the Six of Swords in Yetzirah and in the sixth Sephiroth of Tiferet there. So you could go from the 8 through the devil, or you could go from 7. So and this uses the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery, and from 7 you're stealing, you're being mischievous, and then you go through death, through transformation onto the boat raft, and then you move on. So these are like kind of beautiful things that I've never think in this way.
And when I think of Tiferet, and it being the beauty Sephiroth, I thought, well, how in the hell is the word science connected to beauty? But it's not beauty. It's beauty in terms of like not beautiful. It's beauty as in like again with truth and like your mind. Your mind is beautiful. Beautiful. The map of the universe is beautiful. Stars are beautiful because of the way they work in tandem with the rest of the stars and things like that. And Crowley even states that this Sephiroth is the most important because it's actually linked up to Keter. So
Yeah.
there's, I think, that's a big deal. I mean, it goes through Dayat, but that's the unknown Sephiroth, so it's not technically a Sephiroth in my research. So, but it's completely, because see, when you think of Malkuth down at the bottom, that's not even linked to the top. It's linked to the rest of them down there, kind of like a root system. It's going like this, right? And then so what up here, Tiferet sits up here on top of all the roots, and that's linked to all the way up to Keter, the divine light. And that it makes a lot of sense that it would be the most important. I wrote down it's that it could be the beauty that's the silver lining in things. Like in terms of this specific card, the Six of Swords, and scientific truth, using your brain, organizing, having your thoughts organized, there's a silver lining to the defeat that we endured in the 5. It's about using your intelligence to find the beauty in what you've already endured. And so I think that that's kind of a link. It does say, I'm gonna read this because y'all know me, I love the Book of Thoth. It says Tiferet shows the full establishment and balance of the idea of the suit. So this is a particular in this case, in this card, as the intellect itself is also referred to the number 6. So intelligence is beauty in terms of what Crowley thinks. So I like that it talks about Tiferet's beauty in terms of the mind, in terms of consciousness. So this is actual consciousness and the beauty in the way in which we think, our thoughts themselves, and then everything that the brain encompasses, there's a beauty in that. So I think that that's probably why this card sits in Tifroth. And I didn't pull them out, but if we think about the other sixes, the other suits, we could probably, like, I think of the Six of Cups in the writer system. There's that that gift, like someone's
Yeah,
handing the
I will dig
flowers.
the cards as you go.
Okay. And I thought about like when we think about the beauty in Tifroth, we have to not only think of this one card, but we have to think of the sixes that is the other suits as well. So the Six of Cups is that, I guess, that nostalgia, that I always thought of that as a gift giving. Like, you don't really know who's giving the gift and who's receiving the gift, but it's about that dynamic, that beauty of the give and take, and it being perfectly balanced, again, because Tifroth is balanced. The harmony in the gift. And then we think of the Six of Wands, right? And the Six of Pentacles, right? And how that is, in terms of Crowley's deck, that's valor. But then in terms of the Rider-Waite, it's a victory. But I think that valor and victory mean the same thing, right? So, and notice how in the Cups and the Pentacles, the two passive suits, they look like they're giving something. There's a give and then there's a take. And then in the Wands and in the Swords, there seems to be there's a more of a go, a journey, right? So could that be that he's moving through, he's already done the battle from the 5, like we're already dealt with the 5, so he's come through using his drive, using the willpower, right? There's still a drive in the two active suits. Excuse me. And then in like I said, in the passive suits of the Pentacles and Cups, there's a give and a take. So there's a huge difference between those, like the two passive and the two active suits. And that always confused me, to be honest with you, because I thought, okay, well, how is valor giving and taking?
Yeah.
Do you find the 4 suits similar, or do you find them kind of infuriating like I do? In terms of the sixes, like, because, I mean, all of them kind of have their own thing, but when I think of the tarot...
Still, but I maybe look at it on more superficial level, and the way that one never might not should be looking at the tarot, but all of them I could easily put on a good card pile. So none of these are like really bad cards or not really bad news in a way, like when we think of the 5s. And I think that's a good way to include the Tree of Life, because 6, it is the beauty and it's ruled by Sun, and Sun is representing ourselves. And but then when we go to the 5th Sephiroth and the 5s not being assist cards, if we think about the 5 of Cups and any of the 5s, there's always this disruption and not nice. So
I'm sorry, I like how you said Sun. That Tifroth is ruled by the Sun, which is a star, right?
Yes.
Ooh, so the Sun being our guiding star. Huh. Yep. I like that. Maybe Mel's on to something.
Yeah, it was actually T. Susan Chang saying that guiding star thingy. Yeah, that was from her book. But I guess those brainiacs come to
think alike.
They must think alike. And isn't it wonderful when you're listening to the podcast? Now I kind of understand them better, because we are trying. We are actually trying to focus on one card. And sometimes when I'm listening to the podcast and I'm walking with my dog outside, and I'm like, boom, 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 they're going all over the place. And when I can't see anything, I'm sometimes struggling to follow. But now when we try to talk about one simple card, and we end up digging like thousands of cards, and I understand them a whole lot better now. I've never tried doing now. I've never tried to dissect a card with another person in a conversation. So that's kind of an interesting experience.
It really is. We should do a podcast. They're doing it well enough without us. Okay, I know.
No one could listen to us for over one episode. Yeah.
I know that when you talked about we can't just do one card, it's like eating one potato chip. For me, I kind of look at the tarot cyclically. So in terms of this one card, I can't think of it like just one. I think of it in relation to the other cards are surrounding it, the other suits, how they work together. And like you were using the majors, it's like they relate too. We have to pull those in too. So it's really been, I think they all work together. Like that's how we get the definitions that we like, the meanings and the keywords and we're using astrology and we're using Kabbalah and we're using, the tree of life, but they all do relate to other cards. I know that you spoke of futility, the 7, as the very next card, right?
Yes.
Like this is what happens after the 6. And to know that, which is one thing that I learned is that the 7 of Swords is my birth card. Like it's Aquarius and it's Sun in Aquarius, I think, or something like that.
Moon in Aquarius.
Moon in Aquarius. Okay, well then no.
Yeah, but it could be in the wheel of the year. It could be in your. I'm just gonna pop out the wheel and confirm your birthday, so you can go on and talk.
Well, when I think of futility, I think of, and then I think of the 7s. Okay, we have to think of it all like we did with the 6. But in terms of like a cyclical nature and in relation, like we were just talking about, how we have to use multiple cards to figure out what this one card means. It's not so much that we have to use those cards. It's that this, in terms of a cycle, we're using science, we're using our brains, we're using our intellect in terms of like divination. Like if we get this card, but then as a cycle, we fought, now we're using our brains, then what's next? Fucking futility, right? Which in English, it means uselessness. How can you be using your brain and using your brain and trying to organize your thoughts, if that's what this card means, using your scientific truth, your actual truth, the real truth that is whatever your truth is in terms of your brain. How the hell is uselessness the next thing that happens?
Yeah, and because I think it's so interesting, because I also have one deck of the Thoth that is in Finnish titles. I'm trying to, but it doesn't. You don't understand anything anyway. But it says turhautuminen, which means frustration, and that's how the futility is named in the Finnish deck. And I don't know who came up with these Finnish translations, but I think that they are kind of set in stone and chosen to use those for, I don't know, whatever reasons. But futility is one word that isn't in my normal standard English vocabulary, and which I don't use. I would use another word if I would talk about that
right,
concept or thought. But what was your birthday? Was just what was the date?
the 18th.
18th, yes. You are on the last day of the 7 of Swords. So you are in the last decan,
right,
of Aquarius.
Actually, I think I found that out.
Is the moon. So on the next day, into the cups, and then it would go to the 8 of Cups. because when you change the zodiac to Pisces, so you're just on the cusp of Aquarius and Pisces.
I'm a cusp baby for sure. Like,
yeah.
Literally, my degrees is I'm hanging on to Pisces really hard.
Yeah.
So I love that in Lon Milo DuQuette's book, he actually talks about if this is your card, like in terms of astrology. And I've read up on futility also, but it's in terms of like what he talks about in terms of the futility card, because kind of, I know we're talking about the 6, but in terms of a cycle, it talks about it being another battle with yourself. Like once you get all your thoughts organized, there's another battle that ensues inside. Like now you have to pick one, right? And there's a frustration in that, right?
Yeah.
You find which ones are useless. Like you have your thoughts and you organize them. Say I have like 5 thoughts right down here at the bottom. Now I have to choose one. I have to choose it. I have to make a decision, basically. And it's like, damn, I really want to do this, but I don't know about this yet, and stuff like that. So, right, I found the silver lining, found the beauty in my thoughts. But now I'm frustrated as hell because I have to actually make a decision. I can't just sit back and not do anything. So there's yet another battle. So I think the 5 and the 7, they kind of surround the 6. The 6 is when we finally find the information that is in us, and we get defeated. We have to step back, right? Then we have to use our intelligence and truth, which is the 6, and then after that we have to actually do something, actually battle with ourselves and do something about whatever it is. It's like, and we have to hold ourselves accountable for our decisions. So once you make that decision, that's it, you've made it.
Yeah.
So I think that's could be a good reason why frustration is a keyword and when they picked. Yeah. Actually, you know what? Do you have a German edition? I don't know how to speak German, but
yes,
I know that.
Yes, I do. I'm just stepping up and picking it from here.
I mean, I know you have like 17,000 thoughts.
Yes, I do. Oh, Wissenschaft.
I'm going to try to translate that.
But it's the 6. It's Wissenschaft. but this is the 6 now. It's WISSN.
Wait. WISSN. Let me get to German, because I'm not even.
And then S.
Wait.
Let me know when I can spell it to you.
Okay. All right, what I have is WI.
Hi, people. We are spelling German.
WISSN. Right?
EN.
Oh, okay.
EN.
Okay.
SC.
Okay.
HAFT. Wissenschaft.
Oh, okay. It means science in German. Well, now we know.
Did you find it? Google translating. I was translating the German 7 of Sword. People can laugh at me because I laugh at people who try to speak Finnish sometimes. So it's nutzlosig. No, not loosey possible. But when I put this word, this nutzlosig gate into the Google translator that I have here, it says the English word of idleness. And what does idleness mean?
Like you have nothing to do. Like when I'm idle. Okay. Like when a car's idling, it's on, but it ain't doing nothing. It ain't going nowhere. So okay. There's an English, like a proverb thing that we have, a saying that we have here, like idle hands are the devil's workshops, which means if you have nothing to do, then you're probably going to get in trouble because you're just going to find shit out to do, to not be bored. So it's probably like boredom. That actually is so cool that you looked that up and it had that, because I think of idleness as you sitting there wanting to do something, but you're not doing anything. So again,
so we have three really different words coming
yeah,
from the Finnish, the German, and the English Thoth. So there you
that's so crazy.
see the keyword and drive us to different directions depending on nothing works because I don't understand a single word, but there are differences, I guess. And if you're looking, you could tell us more in the comment box. That have you heard the English titles of the Thoth deck and the German, and do you see a lot of differences between the actual English meaning, how it could be, described, and the German? I've never thought about that. So good question, Lennon.
Well, I know that, I knew that from a whole other video, or maybe a podcast that I listened to, that some of the translations are taken way out of context, and they translate it and they just come up with the closest word they can get into their own language. And so that was pretty interesting. I do like how you want everybody to comment down below this video and tell us about some words, what keywords even. I know a lot of people don't even use keywords, but if you do, and you have a different translated deck, which one makes the most sense to you? Like, that would be interesting to know too. Like, let's take a poll or something. Like, is it idleness, uselessness, or like, which word would make the most sense? I think both of them kind of are similar, but that's interesting. I like how we figured that out together.
Mad genius with Google Translator.
Yeah, no, there's a science and magic in that, right?
Yes.
We just did some Six of Swords shit. So we've been on for about an hour now, haven't we?
Time always flies when we chat.
I know. Okay, well, we covered a whole bunch of stuff about the Six of Swords, this science card, and we were able to uncover a lot of things here today. We've been on for about an hour, so we're going to cut this off, and I hope that everyone had a blast today talking about this one card. Thank you so much, Hanni. Please leave your comments down below as to your thoughts of this one card or the surrounding cards or anything like that. Any last remarks, Hanni?
No, I just wanted to thank you, Lennon, for doing the Thoth Thursdays. I love them. They're highlights of my week, and I appreciate you as a card that I was so confused that I wanted you to talk about it to me. So I think that was a ballsy move, but you're a ballsy girl.
I am that.
So, yeah, but once again, it was fun hanging. I hope we made some sort of sense. I have to watch the replay and see what we were able to.
I know. Talking to each other is fun, but it's like, did we actually learn something? Like, we'll have to watch it back together or something.
No clue.
Okay. All right. Again, I hope everyone enjoyed this. I will probably get back on with Hanni another Thoth Thursday because she's my #1 fan. So bye. I hope you have a blessed day.